Thanks and welcome back to the program now. Reports emerged this week with potentially positive news on the plight of American basketball star Britteny Griner, who I've talked about frequently on this program. She's currently serving her 9-year prison sentence in a Russian penal colony. The reports, though, this week indicate that Russia and the U.S. could begin prisoner swap negotiations even soon, held in a neutral location. Their appeals exhausted in the Russian legal system, Griner's conviction for drug smuggling had left little hope for her release, what's largely considered, from the outside at least, to be a diplomatic issue. Here's more from Washington.
We continue to have ongoing conversations with Russian officials about Brittany's release, as well as Mr. Whalen's, and trying to get them home to their families where they belong. I can assure you that those conversations are ongoing, and we want them both home as fast as possible, and this administration is going to stay committed to that task.
Now we go to Stuart Smith, correspondent, joining us from Moscow. Stuart, thanks for being with us on this issue. She's a star basketball player from my hometown in Phoenix, Arizona. So I was following the latest on Britteny Griner right now. What can you tell us about the source, though, of some of these reports that talks are either ongoing or could commence soon between Russia and the U.S.? What do we know?
Yeah, ongoing. To be clear about that, it's the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the White House we're hearing most about this, but indeed the talks have been ongoing since summer. What has happened, though, and the latest we've heard is from the U.S. representative here in Moscow, the Chargée d'Affaires Elizabeth Rood. She's saying that the U.S. has provided a very substantial offer to Russia, but it's not being taken seriously by Russian officials. The U.S. then amended its offer to try to get some kind of agreement, and still the U.S. says Russia has not provided, quote, a serious response. Now, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and its Deputy Foreign Minister, Sergei Ryabkov, say they are still talking with the United States, that a dedicated channel for discussions on prisoner exchanges is open and is being used, aside from all the larger geopolitical issues, which, of course, Russia and the US have more broadly. But so far, it hasn't changed anything, seemingly. We don't know why, because Russia is deliberately not talking about these talks in public. But it does mean that as of November, Britteny Griner has been sent to a penal colony in a region called Mordovia, around 400 kilometers southeast of Moscow.
Doesn't sound very pleasant. What do we know? Has there been any leaks, essentially, or report, on her conditions there, her quality of life, or what's it like for her in this colony? Has it been just like sort of blackout since she went there?
It's been more of a blackout than there was when she was being held in Moscow, but the U.S. Embassy does say that as far as they are aware, that she is healthy and she is doing well as can be expected under the circumstances, because the stories that come from Mordovia prisons, even the women's prisons, are quite scary. There is a non-governmental organization which used to be based in Russia but has now had to set up outside of Russia that says the labor conditions in these prison colonies are not far from slavery, that some detainees there do report beatings. Of course, for Britteny Griner, there is that slight difference that she is under international scrutiny, and as such, the head of this NGO, Russia Behind Bars, suggests that she will receive better treatment than the ordinary prisoners there.
We can only hope so at this point. What's considered, I know there's a lot of speculation in this, Stuart, but what's considered possible here? We heard the spokespeople in Washington talking about, other people being held by Russia, maybe a batch exchange situation. I mean, is that the idea behind all this right now, that it's some sort of a group for a group, or, this is wider than Britteny Griner?
Yeah, in terms of what we know officially from the Russian position, we know that Victor Bout, a Russian prisoner in the United States, convicted and imprisoned for 25 years for arms dealing, he is definitely on the cards as somebody that could be exchanged by the United States in order to return to US citizens. And CNN, the American broadcaster, suggested that was the initial offer, a 2-for-1 deal, which is why the United States believes that its original offer was a very substantial, significant significant offer for Russia, but that was denied. And so potentially the United States now is looking at other Russians imprisoned in US facilities. There are Russians in US prisons that could be offered, but it's not clear what exactly Russia really wants. If there was a 2-for-1 deal on the table, why wasn't that accepted? Perhaps there is more to this in the idea of having 2 significant US citizens in Russian prisons right now. That could be leveraged for the other geopolitical situation, which is, of course, the so-called special military operation in Ukraine.
Now, in light of that, I mean, maybe we already know the answer to this, Stuart, in Russia today, but is there criticism, looking at Griner's imprisonment? I mean, she was a basketball star in Russia, too. So, I mean, is there criticism internally that, you know, this did unnecessary damage to the basketball league, to sports in general, or is that so far beyond, you know, the everyday issues right now that the country is facing? It's just not being discussed.
Yeah, well, there was a very supportive moment during her initial trial a few months ago when her teammates and the club director did attend to give a good assessment of her character, say that she was an incredibly valued and incredibly responsible part of the team, the Yekaterinburg basketball team that had been had her basketball skills used for many years. So there was support at the time. Having said that, there's also the most common theme I'd say you see in Russia is that she was convicted for a crime which is something that is illegal in Russia. She was convicted of drug possession and drug smuggling. The lawyers, though, of Britteny Griner say that the sentence is what makes this very questionable. The length of the sentence and the fact that, having pleaded guilty, having made clear this was a drug given to her with the consultation of her doctor in the United States, it was by accident, and still 9 years, very close to the maximum possible sentence. That's why lawyers here believe it was a politically motivated sentence.
Stuart Smith, thanks for the great report coming to us from Russia. Thank you.